Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting book stream. My name is Hannah of Hannah Reads Books, and tonight we're reading chapter 27 called Very Near. I'm very tired tonight, so we'll see how well I read a book. Hopefully, it's not too bad and you all enjoy it. In the last chapter, 26, Bakod, the innkeeper, came with his Krelix and destroyed the Wheel of Way, and it turns out he's part of Clan Righteous, whose mission is to get rid of all magic on Vinkyra because they think it's a plague, and all the problems in the world are caused by magic. So he's trying to destroy it, but he's just kind of a slave to Rita Gower because without magic, nothing stops Rita Gower from taking over the whole island. So, bum bum bum. But in the very last seconds of the chapter, the crystal cave was collapsing around Merlin, and he couldn't run like a deer anymore, and he was just lying there about to be consumed by lava, just like the Galator, which was lost. Okay, chapter 27, Very Near. Something hard thudded against my back. A piece of rock, no doubt, or debris from the shattering crystals. I did not roll over. A thud came again, and with it, a sound, mixing with the crashing and grinding of the collapsing passageway. A sound I had heard, it seemed, ages ago. A sound like a horse whinnying. I flipped over. The eyes of a stallion, as coal-black as my own, greeted me. Ion! His great hoof, rised to strike me again, lowered to the crystalline floor. He shook his mane and whinnied. Half dazed, I raised myself to a crouch. Ion nudged me with his nose, urging me to stand. I threw an arm around his mighty neck, straightened up, and hoisted myself onto his back. In an instant, we were careening down the passage. Stone walls broke apart, melting into lava as we passed. The whole passage now glowed brilliant orange, the color of the mountain's deepest fires. Arching forward on the stallion's back, I held on as tight as I possibly could, my fingers clawing at his neck. Crystals flared and sizzled. Steam sputtered, barely missing us. Yet Ion never faltered. His hooves pounded against the quaking floor. Moments later, we burst out of the passage into daylight. The sun, not lava, cast light on me. Ion started picking his way down the treacherous face of the snowbound cliffs. From behind, I heard a rumble that gathered into a thunderous roar. Turning around, I saw a fountain of molten rock gush out of the glowing passageway. Above, the hills were disintegrating. As lava flowed over them, great boulders exploded into ash or simply melted away. Snowdrifts burst into steam. Crevices tore open, splitting the crags. Caves, whether or not inhabited by spirits, collapsed in flames. Dark columns of smoke belched into the sky, while savage tremors rocked the mountain to its very roots. Ion continued his way downward, staying just ahead of the steaming lava. Ice rocks, kicked loose by his hooves, clattered down the face. Over the quaking slabs and promontories, he followed a trail of his own making. He managed to avoid the wide crevice we had crossed during the ascent, skirting its edge for some distance until it narrowed and finally faded away. Often, he twisted suddenly to stay clear of a glowing lump of lava sizzling on the rocks, or leaped to the side to find better footing. Yet bit by bit he made progress, pushing farther down the mountain. At length, the slope grew less precipitous. The ground beneath us didn't tremble so violently. Mosses and grasses appeared between the cracks. A few scraggly pines clung to the mountainside. Although I knew that soon they would be covered by molten rock, the glimpse of green gave me a spurt of hope that we might yet escape. Into what? Into the valley and fields that I could see below, warmed by the golden hues of the sun? I knew better. My destination lay far beyond, in the lands of the dwarves, and the late afternoon light meant that I had barely 2 days left to get there. The thought made me cringe. What did time matter now, anyway? I had no Galator, and no powers of my own. Only the prospect of facing a wrathful dragon alone. And yet, to my own surprise, I still felt sure I must try. Over the continuous rumbling, I heard a shout. I turned, but only saw the narrow, overhanging edge of a crevice, marked by a pair of twisted pine trees. The shout came again. Then I noticed, just beyond the pines, a pair of hands and a head topped with shaggy gray hair. Kirpri! Ion! I cried. Stop here! The stallion halted abruptly. Even so, he looked at the oncoming rivers of lava and whinnied excitedly. I slid off his back. As fast as I could, I ran past the pines, then onto the jutting ledge. Kirpri hung there, straining to hold on. Locking both of my hands around his wrists, I heaved with all my strength. I could hear the rumbling around us grow louder. At last, one leg lifted over the lip of the rock, then the other. His face white with exhaustion, the poet gazed up at me weakly. Can't stand up. You must, I urged, hauling him to his feet. He slumped against me, unable to stay upright. Without warning, a flying lump of lava struck the trunk of one of the pines. Its resiny wood exploded in flames as the entire top half of the tree split off, collapsing across the overhang. A wall of fire leaped into the air, roaring furiously, cutting us off completely. As I stared into the scorching flames, another wall of fire ripped across my mind. The blaze, my face, my eyes. I can't cross that. Can't. I staggered, nearly stepping off the edge to the overhang. Merlin, panted Kirpri. Leave me. Save yourself. His legs buckled completely. I struggled just to stand. Beyond the blazing tree, I heard the approaching roar of descending lava, and in my ear the labored breathing of my friend. From somewhere I could not fathom, I found the strength to lean his limp body over my back. With a groan, I lifted him and tottered ahead into the flames. Fire slapped my face, singed my hair, licked my tunic. A branch caught my arm, but I shook free. Stumbling, I fell forward, onto solid rock. Ion whinnied, stamping impatiently. Oncoming lava spat at us. I heaved Kirpri over the horse's broad back, then mounted myself. Ion bounded off, widening the gap between us and the molten river of rock. The slope became less steep, giving him sounder footing. Still, it was all I could do to keep both myself and the unconscious poet on his back. Downward he pushed until, at last, the slope merged into the rocky hillocks. Moments later, we came to the edge of the narrow valley. Ion instinctively avoided Bakhod's village, crossing into the higher ground of the valley's opposite side. Behind us, the cliffs continued to glow with orange lava. Above, the sky darkened with clouds of smoke and ash. An immense column of steam rose in the distance, perhaps from lava flowing into the sea. Yet the mountain's tremors had all but ceased. The eruption, it appeared, had spent itself. The land grew steadily quieter. By a small spring bubbling through a ring of ice, we rested. I doused Kirpri's head in the spring, which at first made him cough, but soon encouraged him to drink. Before long, he had revived enough to talk and to share some of his salted meat, though his face remained quite pale. Nearby, Ion tugged at some clumps of grass. The poet eyed me gratefully. That was a test of flames, my boy. The mountains as well as your own. I tore at a slice of meat. The greater test is still to come. I hesitated, almost afraid to ask the question most on my mind. Did you see Halia? The poet hesitated before finally responding. Yes, I saw her. Is she all right? Somberly, he shook his gray mane. No, Merlin, she is not. I swallowed. What happened? Well, when the eruption first started, I was a good way up the slope, waiting for Bakhod. He paused, weakly running his hand across his brow. We were supposed to meet there. He was late, and I was growing concerned. The lava mountain seemed to be waking up. All of a sudden, he appeared, riding on the back of one of those infernal creatures. Rags and rat holes, I was a fool to trust him. I grimaced. I did my best to escape, but he finally chased me to the edge of that precipice. Clumsy me, I fell over, barely catching myself. The vision grows dim, though ever more grim. He dismounted, drew his sword on me, when suddenly, Halia bounded over the crevice. Seeing her, Bakhod cursed and leaped onto the Krelix again. Off they flew, chasing her up the slope. My jaw dropped. Up the slope? But the lava. She knew just what she was doing. If she let him down into the more level terrain, she would have had fewer places to hide. Higher on the slope, she could avoid him longer, buying me a little more time. Buying your life with her own, I added bitterly. So either Bakot got her, or the lava did. I fear so. Neither of them came back, but Bakot, I presume, survived. He probably just left me for dead and went about trying to save as many of his Krelixes as he could. Their hideaway, I'm sure, is somewhere up in the cliffs. He twisted a willow shoot with his finger. I'm sorry, my boy. Dreadfully sorry. I haven't felt this wretched since I parted from Ellen. The pain in his voice seemed to echo somewhere inside me. For several minutes we sat in silence, hearing only our own thoughts in the swirling waters of the spring. In time, Capri offered me a few slices of dried apple. I chewed for a while, then told him about my discovery of the Wheel of Way's true voice, my choice of question, and the incomplete answer. His fist clenched as I described the destruction of the Oracle, as well as the Galator. As I concluded, a slight breeze wafted over us, fluttering my charred tunic. If I'm going to face Valdirg, I must leave soon. Are you sure you want to do this, my boy? I splashed some cold water on my face. Yes, I only wish I knew what to do when I got there. If, that is, I can make it past Arnalda. After the way I escaped from her, she'll probably want to punish me herself before turning me over to Valdirg. The poet broke an apple slice in two. I've been thinking about your last encounter with her. It doesn't make sense that she, as a creature of magic herself, would use Negatus Mysterium against you. She sees me as her people's arch-enemy, or at least as their only shield against the dragon, and she's arrogant enough to use any weapons she might have against me. He frowned, but said nothing. If only there were some way I could convince Valdirg that he shouldn't be fighting me, but Bakot, who killed his young, and Rita Gower, who made it possible. Capri gnawed on the dried fruit. Dragons are difficult to convince, my boy. I know. But doing that could be my only chance of stopping him from devastating everything. I certainly can't defeat him in battle, not without the Galator. It's just possible that the wheel, like most oracles, might have meant more than one thing by what it said. I leaned closer. What do you mean? The poet's eyes lifted toward the cliffs, glowing now with both trails of lava and the light of the setting sun. I mean, he answered slowly, that it said the powers of the Galator were very near. That could have meant the Galator itself was near, as indeed it was. Or it could have also meant its powers were very near, nearer than you know. I still don't understand. Rising, I stepped over to Ion. The stallion raised his head from the tufts of grass and nickered softly. Running my hand along his jaw, I pondered Capri's words. We knew so little about the Galator's power, except that they were great. He stroked his chin. Were they any greater, do you think, than whatever power brought you and Ion back together after so many years? Then whatever power gave you the strength to carry me through those flames? I don't know. I only know that any powers I can find I'm going to need. Drawing in my breath, I pulled myself onto the stallion's back. He gave his head a bold shake as he anticipated my command. Let us ride, my friend, to the land of the dwarves. All right, my friends, so that is the end of chapter 27. Tomorrow we will read chapter 28 called Galloping, and actually there's only 31 chapters in the book, so we'll be done in the next couple days. So come join me for the grand finale of The Fires of Merlin, book 3 in the Lost Years of Merlin series. Have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.